Bears. How about that?
Sure.
I was going to start with obviously I was gone Thursday and Friday, so I believe the Ryan Poles extension news happened late in the afternoon. Am I right about that? So I don't think really anybody got a chance to discuss it here on ESPN 1000 until today. But I mean, even before we let's start there and let that lead into kind of your thoughts early on as the rookies will report on Saturday. I have a high level of excitement for this season to begin and for camp to start because of because of Ben Johnson and the way I think that things will look different this year. And I think it'll be very, very exciting. But let's address what's currently at hand, and that is that Ryan Poles got a contract extension that will sync him up contractually with Ben Johnson through 2029. Your first response?
My first response was, okay, well, they lined them up together. That doesn't bother me. You don't think that the Bears are in a rebuilding, but they are. This would be year 3 of the rebuild.
They're in a rebuild, but it's been a delayed rebuild, and I've lost patience with it.
Well, this was not a reward. The contract extension was not a reward. It was basically here you go. You better get it done. All these guys that you've reworked the roster, throw away year 1 when they tanked. Year 2, okay. Last year was awful. But this was basically we're ripping up your contract. Now you get 4 years to get this done. Let's see what happens with the guys you've signed, the guys you've brought in, and then we will judge you. I don't think they're looking at the record. It's too easy to go, oh my gosh, 15-36 in 3 seasons, because they were purposely trying to lose.
Well, they were early on, but the coach hire was a bad hire.
It wasn't his hire necessarily. So now he got to hire his head coach.
Somebody, if that's and I'm not saying, somebody should come out at Hallis Hall and make that statement. That it wasn't his. If it wasn't his, somebody up there should take the burden off of him.
Well, considering the Bears were part of the reports with the agents who were bundling guys available for assistant coaches.
Yes, and
the Bears were one of the ones that supposedly were called and told, hey, bad optics, not good.
Well, I've always felt, and maybe it's because the agent is a friend of mine and formerly a teammate of mine, there was a lot of angst directed at the agent.
He's just doing business.
Exactly. Like if you're an agent, your job is to represent your client and get him as much money for as long as humanly possible. And if the other side is willing to consent to it, that's on them. It's not on the agent.
Shame on the Bears for and the higher ups who were like, yeah, this is a good idea. We're going to let Trace take care of it. He's got 2 guys that are going to be really good. This will be great.
Yeah, it's not Trace Armstrong.
It's not his fault.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It is a bad mark on the Bears. So that's, again, why I say you're a young first-time GM coming in. They allowed him to learn on the job, make mistakes. They basically mea culpa'd themselves by saying, we had something to do with you hiring Flus as well. So now this is your team. Now you have the next 4 years to get it done.
Yeah, I mean, year 1 was certainly, everyone has to acknowledge, it was a teardown. And I loved the fact that they were willing to do that because a lot of franchises, including this one, they're reluctant to do that because to lose 14 or 15 games, it sticks to everybody's resume. Whether it was an intentional, it was a product of your intentionality. Absolutely. Yeah. And when you read 15-36, the first batch of numbers are in a situation, in a season, which was an intentional teardown. Look, I like Ryan. I think that he will be better as time goes on. Like you said, he was a first-time general manager. There have been some really good things that they have done. There have been things that have not happened, and they have not been positive. I'm not bothered by this in any way, shape, or form. I don't rage over this. I've said this about Jed Hoyer. I've said this about a lot of different situations. I'm just not one that is quick to give extensions because I don't think it's necessary unless you have some. Jed's on the final year of his deal, right? Ryan's got 2 years left on his contract, and I do believe the team is pointing in the right direction, and I love his hiring of Ben Johnson and some of the things that they have done. They've bolstered the interior of the offensive line. I liked their draft. I think that this would have been, something that would have happened in week 6 or 7 anyway, because I do believe that you will see the progress over the course of time. I didn't think it was necessary, but it's not something that bothers me in the slightest. As long as this does not become a hurdle for the organization if, God forbid, something goes wrong and you need to pivot and go in a different direction. As long as you're willing to have that approach. And maybe the fear for some is that has never been the Bear way until Kevin Warren got here. And they did let Matt Eberflus go with some time on his contract.
I think there's a misconception about that. I think that whereas the Bears are not going to hire someone in year one of a contract, not
going to fire them.
I should say. So Wanstead was let go with 2 years left on his deal. Duran with 1 year left. And then Tressman had 2 years left. Fox, 1 year left. So there's a back and forth. If we had to suck up a second year, the next guy, we're going to give him a little bit more of a leash, right? And then it got to Nagy. His contract was up anyways. So Fox had 1 year left, and Flus had 2 years. So, yes.
Flus should have been cut loose before last season.
Okay. I do agree with you with that. So they do it with 2 years left. Every other...
Okay.
Right.
As long as it's not an impediment to make
But when it comes to GMs,
decisions.
It has almost always been with 1 year left on their deal.
Okay, right.
But that's stupid. You know what? If I'm Kevin Warren, don't even talk to me about a GM's contract because that money is not the same as a head coach.
No question. Not only that, it doesn't count against your cap. It is really, it's a non-issue.
Yes.
To be honest with you. And that's what I'm acknowledging. As long as it's not something that your decisions are made in your building based on the time that is left on a certain employee's contract. So that's why I'm saying that this is good for Ryan. You know, he got 3 more years on his deal. I'm not bothered by it. I'm not going to rage against it despite the fact that they haven't had consistent success. I think the concept of being synced up exactly with the head coach is in this particular situation because they have struggled so mightily over the course of the last few years wasn't a necessity to me, but who gives a rat's ass what I think? I think that this will become, and by the way, Courtney was reporting this months ago. So this was a fait accompli, right? I mean, this was going to happen regardless.
Well, we've all been screaming to get on the same deal as your head coach. And now that they do it, everyone's like, why would you do it now?
My battle cry is your general manager and coach should be hired at the same time.
Okay, fair.
Because at that point, you negate any opportunity to have, a huge difference of opinions on certain big issues.
But Kevin Warren said from day one, we will not be that team that it's going to be a revolving door. So he's looking for consistency.
Good, and I like what Ryan did this offseason. He hired Ben Johnson. I do believe the Kevin Warren effect is in play there. They bolstered the interior of their offensive line. They've done a lot of things that we've asked them to do. There are still issues, and that's where I will say, to your point, there is a rebuilding element to this that is still going on. I don't know where the pass rush is going to come on the other side of Montez Sweat. What are you going to do to stop the run consistently? I think the defensive line and the pressuring of opposing quarterbacks is still an issue that they're going to have to solve. But for the most part, and that leads me to where I was going earlier, where you think I have this unabated optimism or enthusiasm. But I said to you at the break, though, Peg, I said, it's not even really my head's in the clouds optimist. It's like an ultimatum. It's like with all of you have done and all of you have spent, it's time to win.
Okay, well, you can give an ultimatum, but you have to actually, that's great. Yes, we all could say you have to win now. But what's the reality? You can say it, but let's be a little bit more realistic when you look at the schedule that they have, when you look at the changes that they made with this team, the coaching staff,
but
your
they're
head
all for
coach,
the better.
Your players.
All for the better.
But you're not even acknowledging what that transition can be. That's a big transition.
Yes, but it's all for the good.
And you're assuming that there are all these veteran players and veteran coaches that are going to make this transition seamless.
What I do believe strongly in is that everybody in that building will be being taught the game of football in a higher level than they have the last 3 years.
Right.
You have asked for accountability. You have asked to be coached harder. This group will hold you accountable and coach you hard. So now it's time to win. You've had high draft picks.
Don't disagree with you, but I just don't think it's that easy.
You've hired a coaching staff that I really like, so that's probably where my elevated level of expectation is. Again, I'm not expecting them to go deep in the postseason and end up in the Super Bowl, but it's time to win more than you lose.
So I also think that this 5-year deal is also, it's 4 years, because in year 4 is when you start looking at the hits and the misses. He's at about 500 right now, if not just below 500.
Hits and misses?
With hits and misses.
I think that I heard Carm say this. I think that's an exercise that could drive you crazy if you went through it,
Well, it's too incomplete.
Yeah.
There's too many players that are incomplete, mainly your quarterback. You can't make a statement on Caleb Williams yet. You can't make a statement on most of his draft picks outside of Velus Jones Jr., most of his free agent signings, like Chase Claypool, that was obvious. Last year's offensive lineman, Nate Davis. Thank you, Nate Davis. That was another one. That was a big miss. But some of the other guys, like, can you say Montez Sweat was a good signing and giving him a new contract?
He was for the last 9 games of 2023. Last year, there was not the production you wanted.
Right. So that's somewhat incomplete. His offensive line for the last 3 years
huge
has
mistake.
Been a
they went to
huge failure.
They went to the gate without securing, especially in the middle of that line for you.
He would not spend money on the offensive line.
It was a mistake.
Because the way they value that position, it was too undervalued. They were willing to just go low market on that. And so he's made a lot. But then you have guys that are like, all right, let's see Roma Dunze. Let's see Luther Burden. Let's see some of these draft picks. Let's see the kid the tight end that they just drafted this year. There's still a lot of question marks that are incomplete. That 5-year deal will give you 3-4 years to tell us whether or not those were all good moves.
As you sit and you project, you have to answer those questions. That's the point.
Yeah, you're right.
So the question, when you're answering those questions, I totally agree with you that there is a lot of change. But when you ask the question, how will that change affect how this team plays? Huge upgrade on, I believe, in the head coach and the offensive approach, which will lead to you finally getting more. Not finally, it's only been 1 season. Getting significantly more, hopefully, out of your quarterback. Do you think Caleb Williams played the way that you had hoped he would play when they drafted him first overall?
No.
There were flashes, but there were times when I said he's not being taught to get rid of the ball quickly. He's trying to do too much on his own, and I don't believe that some of that stuff will be as apparent this year with Ben Johnson running things as it was last year with Shane Waldron and then Thomas Brown
Yep.
leading the charge.
Yep.
All of the issues they had on the interior of the offensive line, many of them should be fixed. So when I look at this team and you say there is a ton of questions, and then I'll ask you, well, how will they answer those questions? Will it be a rough ride early on because you're still getting adjusted to one another? Will there be some, cohesion that takes place as the season goes on? And at the end of the day,
I don't know. Will there be a false sense of excitement? Will there be a false sense of excitement?
I don't.
Until
I would not have
fan.
a false sense of excitement if they win 7 games or 8 games.
No, I'm just saying. I look at I could very well see them getting off to a good start until Washington. After that is truly when you will see how much Caleb Williams has developed and how much this team is actually playing when it really gets tough.
But that's a good thing because now you've had a month.
Right. We said the same thing last year.
To find your way.
But we said the same thing last year, and I know you're saying I knew that Flus wasn't the right head coach. Right now, we are hoping Ben Johnson is a good head coach. We are hoping based on what he has done as an offensive coordinator. But you cannot honestly sit there and say he's going to be great because we don't know that.
Great's a strong word, but I feel like the offense is going to function in a much more effective and efficient way, regardless of whether or not he's your offensive coordinator or your head coach. He's going to be in charge of the offense.
Yes.
So I will be absolutely flabbergasted if this offense looks detached, they look frantic.
What happens? What if? What if that does happen? And it's not Ben Johnson's fault, and it's Caleb Williams.
Now you have a discussion. And I said this a long time ago. If we get to Thanksgiving and we're asking a ton of questions about stuff like that, the button will be hit.
Totally.
So.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I just think a lot of this has been built on hope and not.
What's a lot of what though? Like I don't hear anybody.
The excitement over Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, Ryan Poles moves. Like a lot of it is like, let's hope this all works out. Let's hope everyone becomes the positive side of the ledger instead of what the negatives could be. I mean, they both.
But so with that in mind, let's look at what Ben Johnson's track record is.
Yes, and that's the one that you look at and you go, he's got more positives than negatives.
Let's look at Joe Thuney and his play over the course of time as a left guard.
Yep.
Let's look at Drew Dahlman and see how he has played at center. Let's look at Jonah Jackson and see how he has played, mostly at times because he's been injured, at right guard. Like, let's look at that. Let's look at how Caleb Williams came into the league and was the first overall selection.
Right. And you're going to look and say it's not their fault. They also had very good quarterbacks that they were playing with before. So if things go awry, the fingers are going to be pointing at the quarterback.
And rightfully so, in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways. Yeah, in a lot of ways. But there was a lot that, there was a lot we thought the Bears were in tune with. There was a lot we thought they were all in step together with. And until the cracks were really showing in the middle of the season, did we start to question and go, what's going on there? Wait a second. It's like you knew that Flus wasn't the right guy.
Yes.
But to what degree could you still get away with him being the coach? And then all of a sudden, the decision-making in games started happening. And then you started seeing the development of Caleb Williams. And then you realize, wait a second, this goes a lot deeper. You can get away with an average coach, but we realized how deep the marks were against Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about that. But a rookie quarterback's only going to be able to cure so many of your issues, even though the head coach is doing things that make you scratch your head. It's going to be interesting. This is exactly why I say that this upcoming training camp, I think, is going to be very, very, very exciting. It's also the reason why, in my approach and the way I feel about this, why I'm not bothered by the contract extension, because I do believe that there are more answers than questions with what they've done over the course of the last 12 months. If you're still asking, or you're pessimistic, or you're, well, I don't know if this is going to work, then I would think you'd be on the other side of why in the world would you give a general manager a contract extension if you think all of this other stuff, you don't believe it's for the better.
Well, there were two things last year when we were watching Hard Knocks. The first thing that stood out to me was the offensive line was not featured at all. There was one player, and it was Theo Benedict, because he was a rookie and because he did his rookie song. That offensive line did not want to be a part of the show. And to me, I thought, we're not seeing the defensive line either. There is a lack of leadership.
I think it's something that you and Yurko talked about that was spot on from the very beginning. You had 8 captains, and none of them were in the trenches.
And that was the thing that we said, look at this. There's no captains. None of these guys are leaders. None of these guys are stepping up. And you're on a show like Hard Knocks. It was like, this is interesting. And the second thing that really irked me was that there was no veteran presence in that quarterback room. That is Ryan Poles' fault. So there was absolutely issues going on with Ryan Poles' decisions with this roster that really did bother me.
To those points, Joe Thuney is a leader in the offensive line group. Drew Dahlman is a leader in the offensive line group.
We hope he's fixed it.
On the defensive side, Grady Jarrett steps in and brings some leadership.
And what did he do
I've addressed that issue. Case Keenum.
Yes.
So
this is
so
weird.
why am I a dumbass for thinking that they could win 9 games this year?
Well, you've
just made my point for me.
No, you're
I'm a
not.
dumbass for other
but
reasons.
my issue was they basically allowed him to learn on the job. And now his job begins. And now they're giving him the contract. This is his real contract because they were going to let him learn on the job. He was a first-time general manager. That's my point. That this is why this contract doesn't bother me that they gave it to him.
Doesn't
because
bother me.
They basically admitted they were going to let him make mistakes at the expense of this team.
And based on your record prediction, you think some of those mistakes are going to repeat themselves?
No, I think that we need time to judge this team.
You don't have a ton of time in the NFL. The season, some think it's very long, but it can get away from you quick.
All right, I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of transition going on, and you can't expect it just because you have a bunch of new veterans that everything is suddenly going to start looking, like a regular team.
So my
a regular
9-win
NFL
expectation is
team. A little high for me.
And you have them winning 8.
Well, I started at 7, and I was feeling
Are you
guilty,
at 8?
so I went to 8.
Why are you so optimistic? Why did you put the optimism hat on and go from 7 to 8?
Because I do think that there is going to be a false sense of enthusiasm at the beginning of the season. And I do think that they could actually start off well, and then what's going to hit the fan.
So we're only actually 1 game apart in terms of our prediction. You would think there would be a mild.
So I should
between
be
us.
asking you, why aren't you more positive with your prediction?
For the reasons you mentioned.
Are we basically saying the same thing?
Yes, I just have them. I'm saying that you don't do all of these upgrades and have this amount of time and not get to a game over 500.
And I'm saying you don't do all these upgrades and expect it to happen overnight.
You know why? Because you're a tortured Bears fan.
No,
Yes.
I'm more a realist.